Good morning, everyone online. We are hopefully getting this up and running. Thank you for being patient. This is our first time, at least my first time, doing this without Kendall here. So Anna is my trusty sidekick, helping me with our Zoom online meeting platform. Let me see here. I'm going to do a few things to get this platform set up. For those online, if you can hear me, go ahead and type in the text chat. I don't know if they can hear me or not. Hopefully they can. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay.
Yeah, and the little red dot.
Wow, that is very small.
That's what it is.
Okay.
It's not as small on our actual monitors.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, everybody online for waiting on us. We are experimenting with this, and Kendall is at a Cersei Dynex Consortia conference, so he is our in-house expert, and he is not here. So we are figuring this out, but I think we've got it set up. It sounds like everybody can hear. You can see the screen. You should see the library staff support site, and then we do have the recording going. So I think we're in good shape. Yeah, I think what we'll do is I have Erin Roberts. Remember, Erin Roberts volunteered to be our database committee chair at the meeting last month. So Erin is here. I'm going to have her start the introductions, who is in the room here at RSA, and then we'll read the participants online. I know you can read them too, but we'll just make sure everybody knows who's in here. So we'll start with you, Erin. No, they cannot hear you from down there. So come up here. Yeah, thank you.
And I don't know everybody in the room, so it'll probably be best to get people in here to tell me loud.
Yeah. Okay, we'll start with you. You're Erin.
I'm Erin Roberts. I'm from Illinois Prairie District Public Library.
Okay, perfect. Jane.
This is Jane Bradbury, and I'm from one of the catalogers from RSA. I'm actually the cataloging and database senior specialist. My name changed recently.
We just tweaked her title. The title. Yep. Yeah. Okay, we'll jump to you.
I'm Rhonda Bierman, RSA cataloging and database coordinator. Yeah, coordinator. Lisa Shemansky, RSA. Sarah Naisland, RSA. Jamie Buckman, RSA.
Doug King, System Coordinator, RSA.
Anna Hudson, Member Services Supervisor, RSA.
And then, of course, I'm Erica. Let's go ahead and go to the participants. So if you want to read the
Amy Gould.
That's Kewanee Public Library.
Carrie Gibbons.
Washington District Library.
Courtney Young.
Oops, sorry. Jumpy. Village of Avon Public Library.
Julia Kozit Callahan.
Normal Public Library. There's Lisa, our chat monitor.
Yep. Lori Haller.
From Washington District Library.
Lori Pree.
Oh, hey, Lori. We talked yesterday from Danvers Township Library.
Megan Greenhall.
Chillicothe Public Library.
Megan Rowe.
Galesburg Public Library.
Nancy Turpinning.
Galesburg Public Library.
Rebecca Partee.
Oh, Peoria Public.
Tracy Carroll.
Pekin Public.
Joanne Heilman.
Oh, hey, Joanne. We talked yesterday, too, at Pekin. Okay.
Well, if that was 2 hours or 2 hours.
Yeah, I know it's kind of condensed in the chat. Okay, so I think what we'll do is let's take a look at the agenda. We'll be playing musical chairs here in our room because we have different staff that are going to be presenting. Just like every database meeting that we do, when you're on the library staff support site, rsanfp.com, if you go to the left-hand menu, go to RSA Board, Committees, Groups. And then I actually, thank you, Jane, for pointing this out. We had some goofy naming conventions going on here. It called us one thing.
Lori says
Mhm.
that, she can't hear anything now.
Uh-oh. Well, let me see here.
Keep talking and see.
Keep talking. Okay. Can everybody else hear okay? Go ahead and type in the text chat if you can hear.
Tracy says she can.
She can hear. Okay. I wonder, Lori at Washington, try completely shutting the Zoom and getting back into it. No, but oh, that's true. How about Carrie at Washington? They're at the same library, right? Thank you, Rhonda. Could you type that too, Lisa, into the text chat? Thank you. This is why I'm not the only one doing this, because
Other people said that they can hear you.
they can hear. Okay.
It's recent. So I think that's Lori.
Yeah.
And Zoom is
I
detecting
think-
you appropriately. It's picking up who's talking. So,
Okay. Yeah, it is flashing. That's a good point, Doug. Yeah.
well, no, it specifically says who's talking in the top there.
Yeah, and it's flashing at me.
Joanne
Good.
says she can't hear, but she's listening to Tracy's sound, so I guess she's fine.
Okay. Yeah, if you're having trouble, and I know Lisa's typing this too, but just completely shut it and get back into it and see if that helps. But like I was mentioning, I renamed the database committee page because it was called database maintenance, database management. So we'll just call it database committee since that's what we go by. So I'm going to go ahead and click that link. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is what we were encountering earlier. Let me hit back here. Okay. To be investigated after the meeting, so use it. I have a feeling it has to do with me changing the name. So if you use it from the left-hand side, it works. We'll look into that after the meeting. But here's the agenda for today. Okay, we're going to move next to Lisa talking about the Toulon, how they have a neat sticker for their returned items, and then we'll cover the rest of the topics on here too. So we will switch positions. Okay, great. Look at the chat.
Okay, so this will be fairly quick, but this was just something that I noticed that I thought was super cool when I was cataloging some stuff from Toulon earlier. Is this the one I want to be in? Whoa. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that with our delivery labels that we send back, we've started putting care of cataloging in the notes section to kind of make it really obvious for anybody that's sorting delivery that that item needs to go to the cataloging department to finish its journey through the whole process of getting cataloged before it can go out on the shelf. But Toulon was doing something cool to make it even more obvious for people that are on their staff. So what Toulon has done, okay, is when they send in items to us, they already have their item ID on the items, and they've just, I don't know where they've gotten these stickers from, so if you're interested in this, maybe reach out to Toulon. They could tell you more about it. But they've started putting these stickers that are easy to peel off and won't, tear and remain on the items over the barcode, so that staff can't, scan something and put it on the shelf by mistake before cataloging is finished. So that's just one cool way that you can do, like if you're concerned about staff not like knowing to send stuff to cataloging, this might be an option of something that you can do to kind of like really signal to them, hey, this needs to come to us first. I know in the past we've had Jennifer Jacobson Wood from Alpha Park talk about how at Alpha Park she will run, or I don't know if they still do this, but they used to run a report to find change me call numbers pretty frequently, just to make sure that something that came from our office didn't mistakenly get put out on a shelf. So does anybody out there that's at the meeting right now, do you have any suggestions of things that your library does that's unique to kind of make sure that things finish the cataloging process before they're put out there? Anything different or fun? And there might not be. I mean, you might just tell your staff, hey, look at the delivery label and leave it at that. I mean, that's, yeah. So anyway, but I just thought I would share this because I thought it was interesting and unique and different. But if you do have anything that you think of later and want to share with us, just, you know, send a message to the help desk or something, and maybe we could talk about it at the next database committee meeting. Thank you. Sorry, we're playing musical chairs right now. Rhonda will be with you momentarily.
It's so much fun. Trying not to step on one another. Hey, where's the website? All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to go over an often forgotten about search that can be done in workflows from our guide, Search Strategy Guide for the Workflows Call Number and Item Maintenance Wizard. It can be found either on the database committee page and the documents for this meeting, like Erica showed, or you can find it on the site by going under Workflows Document and Training, going to Cataloging, then go to Guides and How-Tos, and it is Search Strategy Guide right there. You click it and then open it up. All right, what search we're going to go through, as you can see, there's many searches here that you can check out. We're going to go over the cataloging code search, and we're going to do that in workflows. So we need the call number and item maintenance wizard. It'll open. There we go. All right. The cataloging code search can be very helpful to find a variety of things when you want to be more precise in your search, such as only wanting large print books to show up in your results. Since I use large print as my example, I'm going to show you just one way to use this cataloging code search. In the top left corner of the wizard, you see this little binoculars with the pickaxe is what we call it, or it might look like a red X to some people. You click that and it opens up search options that lets you choose cataloging codes. And so since I used large print for our example, we're going to look for that. So the best way to search for large print books is using item category 3. And so you just choose your large print for item category 3 and then hit OK. Then in general, you type, I know, but I can't find the hashtag. Oh, there it is. Hashtag 0. And then, which using hashtag 0 tells workflows to search for all items in the library's collection that are assigned that code. We're going to assume that we have a patron standing in front of us, and we're at Pekin, and they want all large print books by James Patterson. And they don't want to go to the shelf to look. They want you to find it for them. So we can do a search that with the author and the general, because that's telling us only large print books in our result and only from Pekin Public. So you hit search and you then have nothing but results for large print materials. You can see there's large print and we have large print and large print. So that's a handy little way to find just large print items in your collection by a certain author, or just, if you want to, just the large print items in your collection. So you can see why I minimized. There's over 6,000 items there, so I tried to pare down our results. So now I'm going to show you another search with this same idea behind it. So let's say we want to search for all the items in our library that have the item type Blu-ray. And this time our library is Alpha Park. We use our pickaxe, and we change this to all. And we go up to item type, and let's choose Blu-ray. See how many Blu-ray options there are? We just want Blu-ray. And we hit a search, and we got 657 Blu-ray items. So that's everything that's tagged Blu-ray in Alpha Park's collection. There are a few things to keep in mind when doing searches with this pickaxe feature. Searches only retrieve results for those libraries that assign the same cataloging codes as your library. For example, like I just showed you, if you use Blu-ray, but several other libraries use all those other Blu-ray codes, if you do a search for through all libraries and just choose Blu-ray as your item type, it's only going to show the library or the items in all the libraries that are giving item type Blu-ray. Not all the other Blu-rays, just Blu-ray. That's just how that works. Next thing, when you're finished with your search, you need to close the wizard and then reopen it in order to do another search, because if you don't, you get this handy dandy little error telling you, hey, you can't do that. The reason being is that even if you hit reset, you're still going to get that error because the reset button doesn't reset the pickaxe, as you can see. So the best way to clear it is either by changing that to all or just closing the wizard. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. One detail I'll mention before Sarah talks about the binge boxes. That cataloging code search can be helpful if you're trying to do cleanup. Let's say you get a report run of counts and you see that you have some items assigned a code that maybe you shouldn't be using. See if you can search by that code using that trick and pull up the items and correct them. Sometimes it doesn't work because you need the cataloging code in your menu. If you're trying to search by a code that isn't in your menu, that trick doesn't work very well. But let's say the code was still in your menu, maybe something like stacks, you could search for that code and pull up those items, get them corrected, and then ask us to take the code out of your menu. So it's helpful for cleanup in addition to searching. Okay, we're going to switch to Sarah now. Lucky for us, Sarah has joined the RSA staff as our one of our coordinators, our member services coordinators, but she can tell us all the ins and outs that Galesburg did to get their binge boxes started. So I will turn it over to Sarah. Oh, sure. Yeah, let's see here. Thank you to Megan for bringing your binge box to the meeting last month, and we got some photos of it. Yeah, and then feel free to open any others. I'll switch you spots if you want.
So I didn't really know what a binge box was. I just heard Anna mention it kind of as a throwaway at the end of one of our CERC meetings one time, and I was like, that sounds interesting. So I just kind of Googled DVD binge boxes and pulled up some libraries, one of which was Plano Public Library in Texas. Another was the Hartford County Public Library in Maryland, and I basically just cold called them. said, hey, my library's interested in doing binge boxes. I dug through your websites. Yours looked really cool. What can you tell me? Can you send me any information? They were very happy to do so. They were very excited. The format that we used for our stickers came from Plano, I believe. They were very happy to talk to me about it. So we just started to look into what kind of material we would want to use, what kind of things. So we used clear sleeves that we just got from Denko. I think they were like CD sleeves that came with a little flap on the top of them. That's what we put our discs in, and we just had a little ring that would open. We hole punched the clear sleeves and used the ring to close so that all of the seasons were on one ring, so you could open it, and if it was a binge box that had 6 seasons in it, it would have 6 rings with all the sleeves for one season ringed together.
I can shift the pictures if you want.
Oh, is there one of the...
Yeah, I tried to get some of the contents.
Oh, okay.
You should be able to just click
Do the arrows.
Oh, schmancy. Yeah, like
there
that.
you go.
So that was the Star Wars binge box. We just kind of tried to put them in order. So I don't watch Star Wars, so I had to like extensively look and get the order because they came out weird, and Star Wars nerds know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so we just used a ring like that, which that was just something that we had in the library, and we're looking for a way to get rid of them. Those rings were just sitting on the shelf. And I looked into the types of bins that we used. We just used 10-inch art bins, and I ordered them straight from Art Bin. Amazon did have them, but they had a very limited number, and I basically bought all the ones that were available. So I just started ordering them straight from Art Bin. We did notice a couple of times like they would come back and the hinges would be popped at the bottom, but they were really easy to pop back in. And while I was there, we never had any that came back so broken that we couldn't fix them. So they worked pretty well. And they did, like right before I left, we did buy some of the bigger ones. Like we bought the whole range of Game of Thrones, and that is a bunch of discs. And they had a hard time fitting in the 10-inch boxes. And so we did buy 2 of the larger boxes. And they might have been like 12-inch. They were like deeper, and they fit in there pretty nicely. So some of the, I also talked to Bobby Mock at Quincy Public Library because they also do binge boxes. They do them a little differently than we decided to do. I don't remember exactly what their parameters were. But we settled on doing a 2-week checkout. Normally our DVDs only do 1 week at a time, but we thought since you were binging, we gave them 2 weeks with 1 renewal. We did local holds only because we weren't really sure about sending the boxes out in delivery. And then we did instead of a 10-cent a day late fee, we did 50 cents a day. We also have a 3-day grace period. So when I left, they had been in circulation for a couple of months, and we had not gone into lost status yet, which was lovely. And then instead of, when we did pricing, instead of doing like, oh, well, this DVD was $16.99 and this DVD was $10.99, we just did, each DVD was 20 bucks a piece. So seasons, 1 season was 20 bucks, 1 DVD was 20, like 1 movie was 20 bucks. We just did, each individual one was $20 a piece, and then $10 for the box. We just figured that was the easiest way to do pricing across the board. Patrons loved them. They went nuts about them. We had requests. A Marvel movie box was a request. A Game of Thrones box was a request, and we were ultimately able to do both of those for them. And so I did buy a few DVDs. Most of what we made, we either pilfered from duplicates of our own collections, or I sold them out of the donation box. So people would donate DVDs, and I would grab them before anybody else could look at them and pull them out so that we could make binge boxes out of them.
Someone asked, are these second copies of DVDs just?
Yeah, some of them were. Others were things that, like, even if we only had 1 copy of them, but there were 30 other copies in the catalog, I went ahead and pulled them because I figured if somebody wants just that one, we can get it somewhere else. And some of them were things that just had low circ numbers. Like we did an exercise box, and we just looked through all of the exercise DVDs and pulled a bunch that hadn't circed in a while, just to kind of get them out there so that people could look at them. And then we bought popcorn and Laffy Taffy from, I think I bought them at Sam's Club, and put them in the boxes. So patrons really liked them. We hadn't really encountered any with super low circ numbers, but I'm guessing that after some of them sit there for a while, they're probably going to have to change them out, put them back in the collection, and make new ones. I'm not sure exactly how they'll decide to do that, but they were super popular. We put them up on Instagram, made little displays out of them. They were really popular in the summer when people were going on vacations and things like that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Were there any questions? Oh, I just kind of emailed staff and just said, hey, I'm looking for binge box ideas. Does anybody have any suggestions? That's kind of where we got the ideas from. Some of it was just, oh, we have multiple copies of this, let's make one. Or I think this is going to be really popular, you know. So it's just kind of my staff and the library staff is where we got the ideas, that and what we had available. So like somebody donated 3 seasons of Friday Night Lights, so I did end up having to buy a couple to make a complete collection, but for the most part, I would say majority of them were things that we either already had or I pilfered from donations. Any questions? Nope. Perfect.
Thank you, Sarah.
No problem.
Guess I don't need to print mine.
Yes, thankfully we got it.
Yeah, this is Jane Bradbury now, and I was just going to talk for a moment about, well, for a couple moments about why we place the binge boxes on enhanced brief records. First of all, most of the libraries who put together the boxes are answering no to the cataloging request form question about whether or not they're going to share. They plan to loan things out through WorldShare. So a lot of these are things like you just heard that are locally assembled. And so people aren't necessarily looking, they just want to use them locally. An enhanced brief record is good enough, usually has a good enough description to make it searchable for patrons. And also then, of course, secondly, based on the number of growing cataloging requests that are submitted here at RSA, it makes more sense for us too, because it's a shorter turnaround to do an enhanced brief record. Let me see. Some advanced cataloging libraries now, like Normal Public Library, has cataloged, have cataloged binge boxes, created their own enhanced brief records, and we greatly appreciate that they asked for some guidance so that we could make sure that to maximize the searchability, make sure that there was the correct bibliographic description, etc. So I do also have this is a cheat sheet on the website in all of the usual places. Let's see. Oh, I apologize. Let's see. Where's there it is.
Do you want to try RSANFP.com? We have it bookmarked, so we forget what the address
That is the truth. I go here 100 times a day. There we go. That darn bookmarking, it's like the cell phones where you put everybody's phone number in, and now these days you don't know where phone numbers are or whose phone number is whose. Okay, so in the workflows documentation, in the cataloging cheat sheets, you will find, oops, the sample enhanced brief record created for a binge box by RSA. So here is a sample record. Hopefully you can see that fairly well. I'm going to enlarge mine, enlarge it just a tiny bit. So we did note that there are some considerations before you begin. So before you submit it, as Sarah mentioned, These do not check out, at least at Galesburg, for the same amount of time as the rest of the DVD collection. So you will want to consider if you need a new item type like DVD-L or DVD spec. You will also want to consider, and of course I do have links there for the Circ Rule Helper checklist and the Hold Rule Helper checklist to help you prepare before you contact James, so you can make the decisions you need to about when you're going to do what. And the other thing, of course, is that you might shelve the binge boxes separately. You know, if you have them in their own area and their own display, then you'll need a new home location as well. So when you're submitting your cataloging request, we do recommend also that you send the inserts to the discs. So those paper inserts, I know that I had asked Galesburg to do it, and they always did. They sent a stack of like whatever the DVDs were, they pulled the paper insert out from the DVD case, and they sent those along with the DVDs. So the DVDs have information that the inserts didn't have, and the inserts had information that wasn't always on the disc. So we really need all of that. So we highly recommend you send both of those things if you are going to create binge boxes. You can see below here that there is an example. This is one of Galesburg's. I just want to note that the 505 field makes your binge box titles searchable in workflows in the keyword index and in RSA CAT in the all fields search. And then we do also make sure to include the 740 because that makes the title searchable in workflows browse index. So we try to make sure that we include, well, we do include both of those. Let me see what else I wanted to. So let me go ahead and show you a search in workflows. We'll start with the title search. I'm trying to remember what I just saw. Warehouse 13, I think was the name of it. I do not know what that is. I am out of the loop. If it's popular, I don't know it. So you can see it comes up in that search. So then let's do a browse title. It's hard to type on a tiny a tiny little laptop when you are used to a much larger keyboard. So you can see it also comes up here. And I just did Warehouse 13. You can, of course, put the seasons in, etc. So then let's do a search of, we'll go ahead and go back here. And we'll search here. Okay, so you can see it comes up here, and this is an all fields search. So we did not put it, it's not found in a title search. It's not indexed like that because I'm trying to remember what Kendall said. Anyway, let me see if there's anything that would make any sense here. But anyway, it clutters up the title search. It really doesn't bring up what patrons are looking for. The all field search is the successful search. And was there anything else that?
See if you can scroll down a little bit
Oh,
on that page.
Yeah. And there, it's at the bottom here.
There it is. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, like Jane was mentioning, we did check with Kendall about putting the specific titles in the binge boxes into the title index in the RSA CAT, but he was afraid, and I agree with him, that if we start to clutter up the title index in the online catalog, that's going to really be confusing for patrons, because if they select title and a binge box comes up, they may not,
That makes sense.
it may
too.
not register right away that that's what it is, and that Warehouse 13 is one of the titles in it. Kendall looked at analytics for our catalog, and he was able to see, as you might expect, in the Google world we live in, most users are just doing the all field search. So that was another detail that helped convince us that the all fields search should be sufficient in the online catalog to make those specific titles searchable.
Okay, now some libraries are purchasing. Somehow capitalism has reared its head, and vendors are putting together quote unquote binge boxes. So, and there are some binge boxes that there are records for. Then like Midwest Tape has put in some records in OCLC. And again, if you plan on sharing them like Peoria Public Library, I know eventually they plan to share theirs, then of course it makes sense. And you can use an OCLC record if there is one available, and you know, you're going to loan the material out. Here's an example of an OCLC record for a binge box. Now the only thing also on these records then is that you want to make sure, you want to look closely at the 505 and again the 740. If there's, make sure that those things are present. So again, that they're easily searchable. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say. Anything else? And of course, if something doesn't, you know, has omitted, some of these fields are missing or need to be enhanced, then of course you'll want to put in a cataloging request. And I guess that's it. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Erica.
Lori Aller asked, have patrons from other area libraries been allowed to check out the binge boxes if they come into that library?
That is a good question.
That would probably be dependent on each library's CERC and hold rules.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just be individual,
It would.
whether or not they would do reciprocal borrowing on those things.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but certainly Galesburg, Normal, Quincy, Peoria, those libraries would be able to tell you what their local policy is. I'm not sure for a non-resident what they would do, or another library's patron, I should say, not a non-resident. But yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest, but several libraries are fortunately putting these in, so I think that would be a good place to start if you'd like to learn more about how they handle that. That's a good question, though.
I had asked Sarah what they do for Galesburg.
Oh, did you? Okay, do you want to come up here?
Sure.
Jamie's going to join us because she had talked to Sarah about what Galesburg did, so she will share.
Yeah, I just asked her if, because I'm not a Galesburg patron, but if I drove to Galesburg, could I check one out? And she said yes. I just wouldn't be able to put it on hold and have it sent to my home library.
Okay.
And that's mostly just what she told me.
Okay, so-
Sure, that's how they do it there. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hopefully that somewhat helped. Thank you. Okay. We're done with OCLC, so I'm going to shut that. We're in a very small room with minimal walking space, so it's getting kind of cozy in here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to our support site. The next thing on the agenda was talking about the delete titles bug. Let me open up a document here on our workflows, documentation and training, and then go to cataloging, and then cheat sheets, and it should be towards the bottom. Good, I uploaded it. Okay, I thought that we would revisit this because I have gotten a couple of questions from members over the past several weeks. And I know actually Erin here at Illinois Prairie, you've had this problem. I know you were one of the first members that reported it to us several years ago. But we know that there's a known issue, a known bug when you're using the delete titles wizard in workflows. Remember, that's here in the titles group, delete titles. We've gotten reports for the past several years, and like I said, this has surfaced again recently, where this wizard is used multiple times in a row. Maybe you're getting rid of a bunch of items, you're trying to get them deleted from the system. We know that workflows, I don't have a number because it varies, but the delete titles wizard stops working after you do one in Erin's case. Usually it's more than that from what I've heard. Hopefully it's not one, but usually it's several in a row. I'm thinking of Spoon River Community College I talked to in August, where they were doing a massive weeding project and she was doing her 10th or 11th one that day, and it stopped deleting. It just hung, it froze. So I went ahead and looked on the CERC Dynex support site because they track bugs, known glitches in the software. So let me see if I can remember what I named it here. Might be in there. Yeah, okay, I just made a screen capture of what the CERC Dynex site said. So we're a consortia, we're a group of libraries. They're telling us that the Java Workflows client, aka Workflows, hangs or freezes. Here they just have it logged as when you're deleting the last call number. And that is true in a lot of cases because Spoon River College was just trying to delete their copy. They only had one copy. I'm thinking of Illinois Prairie, where you have all the branches, but you're still trying to delete the last copy for that particular branch. This is what I expected, but I just wanted to reassure everybody that if this happens to you, this is a known bug. Notice it says JIRA type. That just means the type of tracking they do. It is a bug. I'm not too hopeful this is going to be fixed. Notice it has not been updated for over 2 years. So it is out there. This is a known issue. I went ahead and put on the deleting cheat sheet on the first page here. I went ahead and put this here about the known bug. I admit this was somewhat for my own use because when we do training, I want to make sure we remember to talk about the known bug because this is frustrating and there's not really much you can do about it because otherwise you have to wait until the next day. After Workflows does its overnight indexing, it'll unfreeze the delete titles wizard. You can't just force shut Workflows and reopen it and the delete titles wizard works again. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It needs an overnight indexing to unlock itself. But I put this on here so we can remember, especially when we're training new staff. But this is helpful too, of course, for you if you want to print an updated copy of this, if you keep a procedural binder on your end or you save documents electronically. So if you do that, be sure to get this latest version that talks about the known bug. The last thing I'll mention, and I mentioned it to Natalie at Spoon River Community College, especially in her case because they were doing a big weeding project. I encouraged her to use the discard user, which they didn't have set up. So she was glad to hear about the discard user because that actually makes her weeding project a lot easier than doing each one in the delete titles and then having it freeze up and then she has to wait until the next day. So remember, we do have instructions for the discard user right below the deleting items cheat sheet. This is a good overview of how it works, but if you not sure if you have a discard user or you need help setting one up, our member services team would be glad to help you get that account set up so you can start doing discards. So that is the best workaround. One thing I wanted to mention is I know here in call number and item maintenance, I promise I won't actually delete anybody's item. Try not to use this delete button. We've had a growing problem with, we call them orphans internally, but where the item is deleted, the barcode, basically this bottom half of the screen is deleted, but it leaves the call number with no item attached. We're starting to see that, and we have a process to delete them, and we may actually be turning off this delete option right here. So your options will be delete title, call numbers or items, or the discard user. We're considering turning this off since, like I said, it's not completely deleting your items, which could be really confusing for patrons if they see a kind of a phantom item in the online catalog. Okay, any questions about the delete titles bug and then what your options are if you come across that? No? Okay. Before I shift it to Anna, who's going to give us an update about the edit item functionality, we talked about, I feel like we've been talking about it in May and September. So she'll give us an update on that. But the thing I wanted to mention too is I know on the agenda for September 12th, we had Heidi Ray from Alpha Park going to present a couple items. It worked out that Heidi wasn't able to join us in September, and we didn't get to that agenda item. Heidi's going to try to present for us in January. So I know she had looked forward to presenting and it didn't work out for her, so we will try for January. And now I'm going to shift it to Anna to talk about that edit item functionality.
Hello. I don't know that I have a ton new to share, but I can't remember what I have shared before. But basically, we have found that there is a need for circulation staff to be able to add, brief notes noting damage to items. Basically, since search staff is often the ones who are encountering this damage, and it's kind of maybe a bit burdensome for them to have to transfer that to cataloging staff every time a note needs to be added. So we think we have found a workaround that will allow circulation staff to use the right-click functions in workflows to edit an item note. I'm just going to pull up workflows real quick, and hopefully I have something on my account checked out that I can show you. Okay, yes. Basically, we're going to try to open it up so that if they right click on an item, they will have access to this edit item note option. We're also talking to Cersei about adding a field that is specifically a damaged field, because this will allow libraries to edit notes on other libraries' materials. And I know some libraries may be understandably somewhat reluctant about that, but we're hoping that if we put it in a special field of this is where you note damage and nothing else, that will, kind of help alleviate maybe some extraneous notes and things like that. So we're planning to, we think we've got a workaround that will work. But as part of this discussion, one thing that we have been talking about is kind of changing the permissions on the circ profiles so that when you log in with the circ profile, you're only seeing the circulation module. There are, though, a couple of wizards that are in the cataloging module that certain circ staff do have overrides to access, and those are, I believe, global item modify and what else? And delete title. So we may be adding those wizards to the version of the circulation module that circ staff sees. And that is, I believe, as of now, kind of the plan to sort of deal with this. That way Circ staff will still have access to the things they need to have access to, and those will still be behind an override. But, you know, without giving access to a lot of things in cataloging that the average Circ staff member probably does not need to access on a regular basis. And this is really just for those people who are logging in under a generic, you know, kind of circulation level login, as opposed to, you know, everyone. So catalogers may not notice a huge difference if you're using your own personal cataloger login, but just so that you are aware that Circ staff will, you know, assuming we go ahead with this plan, which I believe is still currently the plan, but that they will, you know, have this ability to edit item notes. So anything else you wanted me to say about that, or did I hit the high points at least?
Yeah, no, I think that covers it.
Okay. Let me exit out of my account.
Thanks, Hannah.
Sure thing.
We're going to shift to Doug next. Doug is going to tell you about some changes he has been making, and you might have noticed these to Blue Cloud Analytics. Yeah, especially if you're a heavy user, we're hoping you've noticed these things. So here is Doug.
All right, so there's a few things going on with reporting. The two biggest ones are a complete reorganization of Blue Cloud Analytics. I don't know how many of you are frequent BCA users, but it is kind of a mess. And I want to make it not a mess. It can be hard to find what you're looking for. Sorry, I'm used to using this laptop. And I wanted to make it easy to find what you're looking for, because there's not everybody is using everything in here, right? And so I want to make it more intuitive, particularly for new users. Give me a second to type. I don't know that I can type and talk at the same time. I got it right. Okay. There was doubt there. There was serious doubt whether I had that right. So logging into BCA now, you'll see that the folder structure has been greatly simplified. And there are further plans to go along with this, but right now, everyone has access to all of these folders. There will be some changes coming probably along the same time we revamp membership levels, but that's down the line a bit. My goal is to have two folders that people can really find most of what they need. The basic reports folder is heavily curated and very specialized. There will never be more than 8, 10, maybe 12 if I'm feeling wild reports in this folder. The idea is that there will be one thing in here that's easy to figure out how to run that will do what you need for your library. So there's Circ reports in here, there's user lists, there's weeding things, but there's not a lot of options. Most of these should only have one prompt, and that's usually just choosing your library. This should be enough for most libraries to do whatever they need with reporting without getting lost in the morass of folders. The end of month reports and the survey reports folders are currently being constructed. There's not a lot in them at the moment. There's nothing in end of month reports yet because I'm not done with that. But in the end, they will the idea is that there will be documents in there that will give you everything you need to fill out your IPLAR and your PLDS and whatever other surveys people want to send me that they regularly fill out. The other folder that most people are going to be using if they want to go more than basic reports is the advanced reports folder. And even this notice is a lot more simplified. We have one items folder instead of an items count and an items list. These are currently changing a lot. There won't be these in here when I'm done. They'll just be a list of folders or just list of reports. But it can be hard to find what you're looking for right now. Can I click on the search thing? I can click on the search thing. So if you're looking for a report that you previously used and you don't know where to find it, this magnifying glass search box up at the top is your best friend. You can type in the closest thing you can think of to what it was, and you can usually find what you're looking for that way, without having to go through my currently changing selection of folders. The other thing I'm working on is a complete replacement of your monthly reports, your end of month reports that you get from Symphony, the ones that sort of look like they were made on a typewriter, and they have weird instructions like A1 plus B2 minus days that start with T or whatever. Those are terrible, and those are going to be gone. The goal will be to have them done in the first part of next year, and they will be made, the replacements will be made using Blue Cloud Analytics, and they'll have instructions, and you'll have a document for users, one for circulation instead of, cert by item type, cert by home location, cert by profile, each having a different report. You'll have one cert report to sort of simplify things. There is one BCA workshop coming this fall. There may be a second one. I am working on figuring out a day and time with the Galesburg Public Library. I don't know more than that at this moment. We're still figuring out the day and time, but keep an eye on the listserv if you're wanting some BCA training, because that's where the next one will be. I think even if people don't realize that it's something that they need, once they see the difference, they'll be hopefully happy with the results, because these are a lot more changeable and customizable on our end as opposed to the ones that are sent out automatically by Symphony, which we have very little control over what's actually on them. And a lot of those are made to answer surveys that you guys don't have to answer anymore. There's not a monthly state interlibrary loan survey you have to fill out, which is good because that sounds terrible. But that's what all of that A1, B2, B3 stuff is from. Let's see. I think that's about, report request form. Please use it. And right now, while I'm in the midst of reorganizing BCA and creating the new end of month reports, your report requests that are going to be answered are going to be running information for you. There will not be any custom new things being created at the moment. I just don't have time if I want to get the other things done. If you need something for a board meeting, or for a patron who's talking to lawyers, or something dire, that's fine. But mention to me that it's something you need by a certain date and that it's important. Because if you just want a report that's, hey, it's like this, but I want this instead, the answer to that right now is no. We can run existing reports, but I can't do that and finish these other things at the same time. It's just not going to happen. But that's what this report request form is for. If you cannot find something in BCA, if you've got a login and you don't know where it is, use this. If you think that there's a report that doesn't exist that you need data for, use this. If you have a BCA login, I'm not going to run it for you. I'm going to tell you where to find it. If you don't have a BCA login and you submit a report request for data, then we'll just send you the stuff that you need. I think that's about all I've got.
And Jamie's helping you run reports, right?
Yes. Both Jamie and Sarah have actually been helping me keep my sanity with responding to data requests, because I expected this to be like, oh yeah, reorganizing the system, that'll take like a week. No, it's a little bit longer than that. So.
When is your next reports committee meeting, Doug?
That's a good question. The reports committee meeting is open to all willing attendees who have feedback and interest on reports. I demo a lot of stuff that I'm working on to them. And I need to figure out, the next one is November 19th at 9:30 in the morning here at the East Peoria building. Like I said, anyone can attend if they want. I don't know that I have the most recent month, but we do put agendas and minutes up online here. So I haven't done the one for August yet. We don't meet every month because honestly, there's not a need to. So we meet usually every other month, once a quarter, something like that. But I'll be getting the agenda and minutes up for the August meeting probably sometime in the next week. There any questions, Lisa?
Not now.
Okay. Anything else you want me to cover, Erica?
I think that was good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep. And then log out of BCA.
That way you don't mess anything up in your
Well,
high power login.
no, that wasn't the high-powered login.
Okay.
That's what it looks like to users.
Okay, good.
It's a little bit messier to staff still. So.
That's good to show the clean account.
Oh yeah. I don't want them to
that's
see the
smart.
staff folder. So.
We'll keep the mess on our end.
Yeah,
How about that?
exactly.
Okay. One thing I wanted to start doing, we're moving to agenda item number 6. Let me go back there so we can take a look together. Okay, one thing I, like I mentioned, wanted to start doing, and Erin is my first guinea pig to do this. I'd like to start a CMC spotlight for those of you that have used the CMC since the last meeting. I'd like to have those of you, if you're coming to meetings, just sharing a little bit about the items that you submitted to the CMC. So Erin is going to do that.
I get to be the guinea pig today, but that's okay.
I might look it up in workflows actually.
It is a new item, so it's not available for everybody to check out yet, but it will be in a couple more months.
Is that at the main branch?
It's at 3 of our branches. This was a author visit we had back in August. The author is actually from Ann Arbor originally, but he currently lives in Chicago and he works in marketing. And he wrote the book while he was in college about 10 years ago. And he just finished it off and had it published. It took him that long to get it published, so that'll tell you what publishing, getting a book published is like. But anyhow, because he actually does live in Chicago, the Catalog Maintenance Center did the cataloging on it, since he is now considered a local author, even though he actually wrote it somewhere else. But it is a fantasy book, and it is set in a lost borough of New York City that is part fairy tale and part magic. And thus it's pricked. It's think about the series is Tales from the Poisoned Apple, and he has a second one in the works at the moment, but he hasn't finished it yet. So this is a fantasy about New York City, pretty much, set in modern time.
I noticed it has, you can see this here in the summary. It looks like the protagonist's best friend has been turned into a cat. Who doesn't love a book where somebody's stuck as a cat? No, thank you, Erin. This is a great example of an item that the CMC can catalog, even though they're not local to the Illinois Prairie community with Germantown Hills and Roanoke and Metamora. He is an Illinois author, so this is a great example of a book that is CMC eligible. Thank you. So we will be doing more of this, like I said, at future meetings, having one or two of you share CMC submissions. That way we can just see the neat items we're submitting to the CMC, and for those who don't use it, maybe encouraging them to consider it. A couple other things I wanted to mention about the CMC. Let me go back here. I know a couple of you that are in this meeting, you attended the CMC's webinar. I think it was on August 15th. The CMC did a webinar on that day, and they were talking about their scope, cataloging local authors, local history, genealogy. I thought it did a good job summarizing what they do. Admittedly, the presentation was similar to the one they presented at the database meeting. I think that was back in May 2018. but these slides are just a good refresher of what they cataloged there. And a couple things they talked about during the webinar that I thought were interesting, I wanted to bring to your attention. They do catalog foreign language, but as you might expect, the turnaround time is at least a month. They catalog all formats, not just books, so microfilm, music, newspapers, video recordings. If you have yearbooks, and they might have told you this if you've submitted yearbooks before, but you just submit the first and the last yearbook that you have in your collection, and then if there's any other yearbooks that differ in their size, their binding, if they have color versus black and white photos. So if you have a large run of yearbooks, you typically don't have to submit the complete run to them. I know Vince and Sherry and Pam at the CMC can certainly give you specific guidance if you're considering submitting your yearbooks, but they did mention during this webinar in August that that's almost the rule of thumb, is you don't have to send all yearbooks, just the start, the finish, and if there's any where there's significant differences. They do take suggestions for subject headings. If you know that there's a specific topic, if it's a person, a place that you know really should be represented in the record. The CMC does make good full OCLC records, but if you know that there's a particular, like I said, topic you want represented in the record, just to make sure that they do a subject heading for it, you can certainly make suggestions. Let's see here, what else? One thing the CMC mentioned, I think during this webinar or one of their other ones, they are planning to create an infographic about their service, telling us more about it, their statistics. So we'll see if we can get a copy of that infographic and share it with you at a future meeting. Remember, the more we use the CMC, that's the more it helps justify to the state library who gives it the grant that the service is needed. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I admit this is a symptom of being short-staffed, but I do apologize for being slow loading the records. When we get more help, we'll be rethinking how we load CMC records into workflows for you, but for the time being, there is a bit of a backlog. So if you need a record loaded, you're wondering where it is, please just reach out to the help desk or give us a call. What else? I think that was pretty much it for the CMC. There's been a flurry of activity the past several weeks. Several libraries have been using it, so thank you if you submitted for remembering the CMC and using it. Are there any questions about the CMC? No? Just remember it's there. That's the main thing. And I know several of you in this meeting are real good about using it, so that's great. Okay, let's see here. You might have taken a look at this already, but we're moving to agenda item number 7. We did have this posted back in September, but I wanted to go over it today, and there's actually been some developments, and one of them involves Anna, the first one. Anna here is going to Flanagan Public Library this afternoon.
Yes.
So you're going to do Holds training.
Yeah.
And then do they plan to go live with Holds like in a week or two, or
we'll
to
see.
be determined?
We'll see for sure.
Okay, so they are circulating, and Anna's going to go train them on Holds, and then it sounds like it's to be determined. But you'll start to see their Holds soon in workflows, I would say, in the next several weeks.
They're pretty eager and raring to go, so
sure.
Probably sooner rather than later, but sometime don't be surprised when you see Holds for Flanagan.
Do you send a note on the listserv when they go live? Okay, so watch too on the RSA listserv. It sounds like Anna will send a message when they're officially starting their Holds. Let's see, Ransom is nearly finished cataloging. That library is in Altona. In Williamsfield, kind of near Galesburg, that one too is finishing up cataloging. So those two libraries are both going to need their final cataloging visits this fall to do cleanup and cover some additional functionality. So those libraries, they too will be moving forward into circulation in the coming months. And then Astoria Public Library, this is our new library. They are a recipient of the Local Library System Automation Program grant through Rails. And we're going to be getting started with Astoria this fall as well. They have a good sized collection. I don't have numbers at this point, but Kendall and I do plan to schedule an introductory call with Astoria in the next couple weeks. You can tell I have Flanagan on the mind since they're furthest along, but Astoria will be joining us too. So you'll start to see Flanagan items and Astoria items, there we go again, in the system. We did have 2 libraries withdraw since our May database committee meeting. You maybe, if you're in the Peoria area, saw in the news that Mid-State College, which is where Jane worked as the librarian, Mid-State College closed over the summer. And then Camp Point Public Library, that's in the Quincy area. That one was a unionless library that just did cataloging in the database. They didn't do checkouts or holds as a union list member, but they decided to withdraw from RSA and just do everything directly in OCLC. So that one is no longer with us. Okay, let me see here. Talking about new cataloging parameters or codes that you use in workflows as you enter your items. We made home locations since the May meeting for juvenile video games, AV storage, and then books that talk, aka Wonder Books, Box, other audio enabled books. We did not make any new item types. That's how Kendall likes it. We try not to make new item types unless there's a need and there's no existing item type. And we do that for a couple reasons, but the first one is we're actually trying to think about standardizing our item type set. So if we're going to be doing that as part of our strategic plan, not making new item types right now will put us in a better position to at least explore that standardization, if not do it. The other reason is there's lots of back-end configuration to ensure a new item type is correctly configured, not just in workflows, but in reports, notices, even the online catalog. So there's a lot of time-intensive setup that we want to make sure it's truly needed if we're going to do that setup to make sure that the item type is ready to go. We don't add new codes for item category 1. Remember, that's your fiction, nonfiction equipment. We don't add codes for item category 2 either, which is your adult, juvenile, young adult, or equipment. Item category 3, we're trying not to expand because remember that one corresponds to the item type. It's the generic format. So if you have DVD or Blu-ray, it would be the movie category 3. If you have a playaway, a book on CD, it would be the audiobook item cat 3. So this one we're trying to keep as a narrow vocabulary, we will say, of codes. For item category 4, we did add a books that talk code in item cat 4. Remember, this is the item category that's a genre search limit in the online catalog. The reason why we put books that talk there, we have it as a home location. Remember, that was up here, but you can't use a home location to search in the online catalog. So we were trying to make that books that talk aspect of the item record, we were trying to make that more prominent for searching in the online catalog. And then item category 5, this is the one where I made a couple new codes last night I'll tell you about, but we also made primary source books that talk Wonder Book. We also have a book talk -vox, VOX code, and then we have book to movie, and then a third one we have history renaissance. So there's a couple more item category 5s. If you're interested in using any of these codes and you don't see them in your workflows drop-down menus, remember to send a note to the help desk, and I think Rhonda would be the one that can get those put in for you. We've changed that internally to try and rework how we're doing that and make it more efficient. So just let us know via the help desk if you want any of these codes if they're not in your menu. Okay. Let's see, this is slightly outdated, so we'll skip over. Lisa did her workshop at Lexington in September, and she took photos, and there'll be a blurb in the RSA e-newsletter coming up, so watch out for that. But Rhonda is teaching a workshop coming up in a couple weeks. Does the registration close next week, Rhonda, for that? Is it Tuesday?
I think it's Tuesday.
Okay, so if you want to come to Rhonda's workshop at Prairie Skies, Pleasant Plains branch, that's kind of in the Springfield area, the registration closes on Tuesday, so make sure to get onto L2. Lisa's got a workshop then in November at Greater West Central. That's kind of the southwestern area of our service area. And then Rhonda has one in December at Chatsworth, which is the northern part of our service area up in the Dwight, not by Dwight, but kind of in that area. Remember, we're not doing OCLC Connection client workshops because we're rethinking as part of our strategic planning process and membership levels. We're rethinking what the requirements are for that level so we can have a good, clean database. Brief record and item group editor training. Those trainings we will do on an individual library basis if there's a routine need and if there aren't existing staff at the library who already know those procedures. We're finding, and I know this is something I was talking about with the new head of technical services at the Peoria Public Library, we're finding really, and Washington's a good example of this, where if there's well-established procedures specifically for how you're doing brief records and item group editor training, it really is most effective if you can work with your colleagues to learn those procedures. From our end, we can certainly give you, as I call it, the canned procedures, but they don't really mean anything to you because you most likely have your own internal methodologies, your frequencies, specifically what you change. So if you can, working with your colleagues is really the better way to learn those tools. Okay, in terms of upcoming RSA meetings, we decided to take a different direction with the RSA Back to School workshop, and I think this will work to your advantage. I know everybody in the room is, I think, a public library. We are recording videos, not just cataloging staff, but Anna, Doug, James, Kendall. We're trying to get some videos made that would be helpful for all of our members, not just schools. So for example, Lisa's done a video on searching, Jane has done one on cleanup reports, Rhonda's going to do one on different details of the bibliographic record. I'm thinking Doug's will be Blue Cloud Analytics related.
For the schools, it'll probably be more of what you already get.
Okay.
And what other schools get that you might find interesting.
So maybe not directly relevant to publics, but they could still get ideas even
certainly.
from what
Yeah.
schools.
Well, there's a few publics that work closely with schools in their
perfect.
areas.
Oh, maybe the
Pre-core,
intergovernmental agreement type.
Pre-core has the actual students come into the
Oh,
library.
that's right. Sure.
And that's just one example. But yeah, the IGAs have things too,
Sure.
but most of the schools don't need more than what they already.
Okay, so it sounds like the reports video, if for those online, if you I know Doug is right here, but I know I should have had you come over here.
Sorry.
That's okay though. No,
I tried
that's
to stay
okay.
loud.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But it sounds like for the videos he's doing, it'll be a kind of a reports primer for schools of what they're getting. But it sounds like even that could be relevant for those of you that work in public libraries and look at reports just based off of the collaboration. Yeah. Okay, so watch the listserv. The idea is to have these videos done in the next couple weeks, and then I know Kendall's going to upload all of them to the RSA YouTube channel, so just watch the RSA listserv. There'll be a message once those are posted. We do have coming up in November our users group here at East Peoria, and then we've mentioned it already a couple times, but our next database meeting is in January. And we've got it posted both on L2, and then when you go to L2, there's the Zoom link. Okay, we've got several things coming up. I'm going to skip 2 of them that were already done. But remember, the Cataloging Maintenance Center does monthly webinars. So they have one on subject analysis in October, one on cataloging kits in November, and then there's foreign language materials in December. I feel like they have even the January one scheduled, but I didn't put it on here. So just remember, these are open to anybody, even though they're Cataloging Maintenance Center coordinated. And it's real easy to attend, and they use Zoom as well. So it's the same platform that we're using. Okay, I've started including this page here at the end of the supervisor's report, just so you get an idea what our current priorities are. There's quite a few things listed here, so I'll try to just summarize them rather than read all of them to you. But we are trying to hire another coordinator. Like I've mentioned, we really, we're doing as good a job as we can, and I think Lisa, Jane, and Rhonda all deserve a big thank you for what they're doing, but we recognize we need more help. So we are trying to recruit our next cataloger. Working on the backlog. We talked about hosting workshops off-site to try and engage member libraries outside of the Peoria area who can't necessarily come to our office for training. Continuing to focus on cataloging training on site for new staff if they can't come to workshops and there's no existing staff to provide training at their library. We talked about the new libraries. I wanted to give you updates on the policies that we've talked about in the past several months. So we'll revisit this, this item here about pirated and advanced reader copies. There's the new library again. We've begun, and I admit I don't have a timeline for this, but we've begun working with Marchive to look at doing authority control for names, subjects, series, genres, doing RDA enrichment of our records, so putting in content media carrier type fields, spelling out pages, addition statements, and then adding in Lexile and accelerated reader levels. We've discovered, though, in the course of testing, we're going to need a custom database script in order to get the records loaded into our system because of how we have some things set up. So we are working on it, but we are going to be working as well with Cersei because we need a custom process. So to be continued on this, but please be assured we have not forgotten about this. I know we've talked about Marchive for as long as I've worked here, and that's 10 years. We talked about videos, we talked about cataloging parameter support, we've talked about reworking membership levels. We are going to talk here in a minute about the OCLC holding updates. Remember, that's another project that is in flux because we're figuring out a new solution for it. And then I've listed several things here that they are important, but right now they're on the back burner since we have a healthy size list of current priorities. Maybe more than you cared to know, but we we here at RSA, Kendall and I were talking about this the other day. We want to make sure our members understand what our priorities are, because we often feel sometimes like we're working in a vacuum on some of these projects, and the benefit isn't always clear to the library. So we're trying to be better about telling you what we're working on at a higher level. Okay, before I finish up the meeting just with covering a few other things, does anyone have any questions before we leave the supervisor's report? Okay. Let me go back here. Okay, one thing we mentioned here just briefly, we have a name for the new process. Remember, right now we use a vendor called the Mark of Quality, TMQ, that takes what you cataloged and what you've removed from workflows, and it updates your library's holdings in OCLC. If your library is an OCLC member, most of you are. The TMQ owners are going to retire in June 2020, so really not that far away. And then we're going to be starting a new process that's still taking shape, but a consortium north of us called SWAN, System-Wide Area Network, they are going to be really doing the heavy lifting of figuring out a lot of the parameters and the coding for this, but we have begun to work on a replacement service that, like I said, has a name. It's going to be called OCLC Holdings Manager. But our goal is for this new process to take effect, updating your holdings, at least 2 to 3 months before TMQ ends, which is July 1st, TMQ is done. So we are in the process of figuring out the new way of doing this, but as you can imagine, since we're making this from scratch and TMQ used very antiquated coding, there hasn't been a lot to go off of. In a lot of other states, we've been learning the consortia don't update their members' holdings for them. Each library just does it on their own. So we truly are going from scratch on this. So like I said, though, thankfully SWAN has a lot of expertise and some connections at OCLC to help us with this new process. So it will be called OCLC Holdings Manager. We don't do monthly updates in December, February, and May. So that may change when the new process takes effect, but in the coming months, your holdings won't be updated in December, February, or May. Okay, any questions about, I know I don't really have much specific to share other than we're working on it, but other questions about that? No, okay, stay tuned. We know that the OCLC batch holdings are important. Okay, in terms of cataloging policies, remember these were mentioned just a couple minutes ago as well. The electronic resources policy, I know we had talked about that. Well, first we drafted it about a year ago, and then we talked about it earlier this year. And then we learned over the summer, I think Kendall knew this was coming, but it really reached a boiling point this summer. The cost of eResource Central is skyrocketing. eResource Central, remember, is that service we use from CERSI Dynex where it takes your Alliance Digital Media library, your ADML, Overdrive, it takes Baker and Taylor, eRead Illinois, it takes BiblioBoard, which is another Rails ebook program, and it works directly with the vendors, and it puts the descriptions or the metadata for those ebooks directly in the catalog without MARC records. That service has really been increasing its costs, and it makes sense because there's a lot of content for CERSI Dynex to host on its end, as it makes these e-resource collections syncable for their clients. So what Kendall and I talked about doing is we would like to have this e-resource policy. It needs to be revisited in light of the rising cost of ERC. I don't have specifics at this point what that will mean, but one thing Kendall did say is we're probably going to have to start passing along the cost to our libraries in some shape or form, because it's going to be too expensive for us to continue paying for with your existing membership fees. But we need more details to come into play when we rework the membership levels, because Kendall would like to see electronic resources and ERC as a higher level of participation in your RSA membership. So at this point, we decided that this policy needs to be revisited in tandem with the membership levels when we're thinking about the e-resource policy and how that will affect different levels. One thing I wanted to be sure and mention, because this has come up a few times, there is a very good chance that MARC records are not going to be an option in the new e-resource policy. We will do local records if you don't want to send it to the Cataloging Maintenance Center. I know there's been electronic theses at Blessing Health Professions Library. Because of how they have those accessible, they weren't CMC eligible. So if there's little cases like that where it's something locally created, we'd be willing to do a brief record, but we are not going to be loading MARC records anymore. And not, hopefully, Julie, at Normal, we're certainly not picking on you, but your experience with MARC records really has shown us that this is not the way we can continue to do this. And certainly, Julia, go ahead and chime in if you have anything to add. But Normal is canceling their lynda.com subscription later this year, and we are going to be batch deleting all of the bibliographic records at that point. Not all of their lynda.com titles they subscribed to had bibliographic records shared with them, so it was just part of their collection. They weren't always notified when titles were delicensed, so they didn't know to take out the bibliographic records, so it looked like it was still available. On our end, you already knew, I know we talked about this before, that it was very time-consuming initially to bring those records up to our standards. So again, certainly not trying to pick on Normal, but I think your experience was a good one for us to have, because we could see how this was working and how it wasn't. And with you ultimately deciding to stop that subscription, it's helped us realize this will not be a sustainable or an available option going forward. So like I said, major changes needed for the e-resource cataloging policy. So we will be revisiting this in the context of membership levels. I know that wasn't the most optimistic information to share, but I know actually Beth Duttlinger from Lilliam Evans District Library, she was just with us yesterday for a Rails meeting, and she is working with World Book to try and work with Cersei Dynex on an eResource Central connector, and she is making progress. She was saying that World Book is working with Cersei Dynex. So we still encourage you to do that, but remember the cost is going to have to be passed along to you if you want to have the e-content searchable in the online catalog. I know Beth and I think maybe Illinois Prairie, she mentioned several of you have the World Book, and so you could split the cost if there's several of you that want to have the content accessible in the online catalog. If there's several of you, we can certainly split the cost to do that. But we're thinking that is the better way to try and make this content available and accessible and not have the mess that can result from the bibliographic records, and not just the mess, but the patron confusion too that can come with it. Okay, any questions about where we are with e-resources? No, okay. Advanced Reader and Pirated, those two Kendall and I were talking about, because initially I know in May, remember we talked about these policies that basically prohibit cataloging advanced reader copies and pirated items. Initially, I think in May we said we were going to post to the listserv to see if members had feedback. Kendall and I talked it over, and we think that that actually sends the wrong message, because there's not really much room for feedback on these. We can't put them into the database. That's some of Anna's policies, so there's room for discussion because there's more, I'll say, wiggle room, for lack of a better technical term. But what Kendall thought would be helpful to do, and this needs to happen soon, is share the drafts of the advanced reader copy and the pirated policies on the RSA listserv. Essentially a heads up to members that, hey, you know, we approve these, and we're going to be looking for final approval at that November 7th users group meeting. And then once that final approval happens by the users group, that's when internally here at RSA, we're going to be reaching out to those libraries that have entered advanced reader copies that we can find, and that have entered pirated items that we can find, and talking about removal options. So you will see soon on the listserv these advanced reader copy and pirated item policies being shared. But like I said, the idea is not for members to say, oh, don't do it, or, you know, we really want to keep cataloging these. It's more just as a heads up, here they are, and we're moving towards approval of these. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. Yeah, I was, remember we talked about it the last meeting in September, we talked about moving offices. Some of this I found when I was moving offices, one of these things. But we have been also beefing up our giveaways to you as members. So you're going to see coming soon in your delivery, starting with one per library, but when there's extras left over, we'll start to hand them out to anybody who wants one. But we have magnifying glasses for that small font on the title page verso and the back of the movie case and on the disc that we so affectionately love as we're trying to enter items. So magnifying glasses. I know several of you have tape measures already, but if there's a need for multiple tape measures at your library, we do have an extra surplus. So if you'd like a tape measure, you can let us know. Question?
Carrie says that the tape measures are the best.
Oh, good. Thank you, Carrie. I'm glad it's helpful. We've got new pens with highlighters. I think they're also in red and orange, I think, but here's two of them. This is what I found cleaning up my office. I have a whole bunch of these Understanding Mark bibliographic booklets. They are a little bit dated, but most of the information is still correct. So if anybody would like an Understanding Mark bibliographic booklet, I can drop one in delivery to you, and it will be yours to keep. But it does a good job just explaining the different fields on the Mark record, why we have Mark, to make bibliographic data understandable to users and staff. So this, I think this is a Library of Congress publication, if I remember right. So it's mostly good information. It is a little bit old, but like I said, you're welcome to have one if you'd like one. If you come to a training or a meeting, you'll get these pens, but if you'd like any of these other things sent in delivery, the magnifying glasses will be coming soon, but the tape measure and the booklets, if you'd like those, just send a note to our help desk and we can send one out to you. Any questions about those? Okay, if you have ideas for additional giveaways, things that would be helpful for your work, let us know. I can't say we're going to do it. It depends, of course, on the cost and how good of a deal we can get, but we're always open to suggestions if there's something that would be helpful in your daily work that would be really neat and fun as an RSA giveaway. Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention, you have seen this, I'm thinking, on our listserv, but Anna here has started the bi-monthly RSA e-newsletter. And I'd like to encourage everybody, if there's anything going on at your library that you think would be something, I don't want to say, well, fun's really the best word, something fun or different to share in the newsletter. I know Pika and I know Joanne, you said you have 50 of those boxes for your opening collection of those. Even just telling us, you know, you have 50, how they're circulating, if there's been any programs, anything like that. So if there's anything neat going on at your library that you'd like to tell us about, Anna would be happy to take any suggestions that you have. So you can send those to Anna at the help desk.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Lisa?
I was just going to say we're starting a cataloging corner on the
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. So we are, thank you, Lisa, starting a cataloging corner. I'm thinking that'll be more for internal stories, but we can certainly, if somebody submits, yeah, a cataloging related topic, we can certainly add it to the cataloging corner. Yeah, we'll take turns here writing the content for the cataloging corner. So I think, Jane, that was you that came up with that alliteration for the name. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think that is it. Before Erin closes the meeting, are there any final questions? I appreciate everybody bearing with us with the technical fumbling. Okay.
Okay, then I'm going to close the meeting. Just a reminder for our next database meeting is January 9th, and that's in person, virtually, maybe more virtually since it will be January.
Yeah, hopefully we won't be snowed under. We will see. Thank you, everyone, again. Have a good weekend. Happy holidays, and we'll see you in January, if not before. Bye-bye.